We won't make it, I yelled to my friends walking ahead of me. Ilya turned around at my shout and asked, so what do you suggest? We need to find shelter somewhere, I replied with a shrug. Well, you're a real Captain Obvious, Dima said with a note of hostility in his voice. Crap, the rain's starting, Ilya announced, shivering. A sudden gust of wind made us all shudder. Cold, heavy raindrops began to cover everything, and the sky was blanketed by a solid, dark blue cloud. Let's go, I said, leading the guys toward an abandoned house. Of course, the thought of hanging out in a godforsaken shack wasn't appealing, but we had to get out of the storm. I pushed on the old, heavy door, and it gave way, letting us inside. The smell of must and dampness hit my nose. The three of us entered the house and, without a word, began to look around. I never would have thought that there would be anything left to take. Old appliances, clothes, furniture, everything was untouched. Nevertheless, the condition of these items left much to be desired. It was sad to see it all. Maybe someone could have used some of the appliances or furniture, but time takes its toll, and all of it was no longer usable. Still, I continued to explore, room by room, while Ilya and Dima sat in the kitchen, talking about something. In one of the rooms, which appeared to be a bedroom, I managed to find something valuable. At first, I wanted to show the guys, but I quickly changed my mind and hid my find in my inside pocket. I had found a small mirror in a carved metal frame. It looked like a precious metal, most likely gold, as the frame itself was in perfect condition. Zhenya, what are you doing in there? Ilya called from the kitchen. Just looking around. Come join us. In a second, we sat in the house for a little while longer until the rain subsided. Well, should we get going? I asked when I saw the clouds outside breaking up and the raindrops no longer drumming against the glass. Yeah, we can, Ilya agreed. Maybe we should go to my place? No one's home, Dima suggested, but I declined, saying I needed to help my parents. To be honest, I lied. I just didn't want to show them my find. Once we were outside, we all went our separate ways. As soon as I got home, I immediately stashed the mirror in my room. Zhenya, you're back already? My mom asked, coming into my room. Yeah, why? Well, we're heading home today, not tomorrow. Why? Your dad has some business in the city, so we had to go back early. Okay, fine. That same evening, we returned home. Once again, I discreetly took the mirror to my bedroom. We had spent the weekend in the village, and it was actually a good thing we came back a bit early. I had been thinking, and I decided I needed to sell the mirror. It was undoubtedly beautiful and antique, but it was completely useless to me. Selling it, however, was another matter. I wondered how much it was worth. The whole evening, I mulled over how to tell my parents about my find. On the other hand, who would even buy it from me? First, I was afraid of misjudging the price, and second, I was still a student. I didn't think anyone would be willing to buy an expensive item from a kid. It was getting late, and I still hadn't come up with a solution, so I had to put the idea aside for a better time. I was already feeling sleepy, but thankfully, tomorrow was a day off, so I could sleep in as much as I wanted. With these thoughts, I got undressed, fell onto my bed, and passed out immediately. The next morning, however, I didn't wake up on my own. I was awoken by joyful cries coming from the hallway. Where have you been all this time? My God, I can't believe my eyes. My father exclaimed. Romka, how many years has it been? To think, we thought you were no longer with us, my mom chimed in. Hearing this, I grabbed my head with both hands. Romka, that was my dad's brother. He went missing back in 2008, right before my birthday. And now, he had suddenly appeared on our doorstep. I figured I should go out and see them, which is exactly what I did. It really was the same man I had seen in photographs so many times. He had changed over the years, of course, but he was still recognizable. He was dressed normally and didn't look like some kind of outcast. But when I got closer to him, I caught a slightly unpleasant smell. He smelled of old rags, but I didn't pay much attention to it. Who knows what he'd been through? After the greetings, we all gathered in the kitchen. While Mom was making breakfast, my dad and Uncle Roma talked. So, tell us, where have you been all this time? Dad asked. Uncle Roma paused meaningfully before answering curtly, you're better off not knowing. Okay, fine. As you wish, Dad replied grimly, and Mom just sighed. Alright, let's talk about something else. Can I stay with you for a while? My registration is still for this apartment anyway, Uncle Roma said, changing the subject. Of course, you can stay. What are you even talking about? Olga? This question was addressed to my mother. I'm all for it. Besides, you probably need to get your documents sorted out and just get back on your feet in general. We have a spare room for you, so I don't see any problem. And so it was decided. My uncle stayed with us and slowly started to deal with his problems. But the longer he lived with us, the more I began to doubt his sanity. Not that his oddities were a major disruption to my life, but they were definitely unsettling. He found some company with a flexible schedule and took 2 or 3 shifts a week. It seemed like he didn't need anything, no decent clothes, no separate place to live. I didn't even know what he really did for a living, even though I was living under the same roof. He was always locked in his room and hardly ever came out. He never turned on the TV. Sometimes it felt like I was home alone, since my parents were at work and this creature just sat in his room for hours. Occasionally, he would stop dead in his tracks for no reason and just stare at a single point. And recently, we found out he sleepwalks. He gets up in the middle of the night and does whatever comes into his head. When I mentioned it to my parents, they just told me to leave him alone, that life had taken its toll on him. But his behavior worried me much more than it did my parents. Time went on, and my uncle's eccentricities continued. I eventually gave up trying to talk to my parents about it and threw myself into my studies. It was the end of May, so I had to prepare for my final exams. Right now, my grades were pretty much the only thing I cared about, so I ignored everything else, including my parents' suggestion to go with them to visit relatives. Stop it, all you do is study for your exams. I'm sure you'll do fine, my mom insisted. Mom, you guys will have a great time without me, I retorted. How can we just leave you here? Dad asked. Don't worry about him, he'll be fine here, my uncle tried to reassure my parents. No, I don't want to hear it. Go pack your things, Mom said, but I was still against her decision. Mom, I'll call if anything happens. Olga, leave him alone. If anything, I'll come get him, he said. Alright, after all, we're taking the car, Mom said finally. After that, we said our goodbyes, and the front door closed. I don't know why Mom was suddenly so worried. Maybe there was something I hadn't noticed. Oh well, whatever. The day passed as usual. I alternated between studying and getting distracted by social media. My uncle stayed holed up in his room all day again. We didn't bother each other. I sat at my computer until midnight, after which my eyes started to close. I didn't fight it and fell asleep right away. Idiotic giggling pulled me from my sleep. I whipped my head around, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. My computer was off, and my phone was locked. I listened closely. The laughter was coming from the room across from mine. What is wrong with this lunatic that he can't sleep? A sense of dread grew inside me with every second. What could possibly be so hilarious? The more he laughed, the more the laughter turned into something else. After a while, he started to cry, hysterical sobs that gradually faded. Just as I was about to drift off again, I was woken up by crying mixed with screaming. It wasn't loud enough to wake the neighbors, but it wasn't quiet enough for me to miss it. I got absolutely no sleep that night, tossing and turning until the morning. I only managed to get a couple of hours of sleep just before dawn. I was woken up by the sound of a knife on a cutting board. It seemed he had decided to have breakfast for once. Everything went quiet for a few seconds, and then I heard footsteps in the hallway. My bedroom door opened, and my uncle's cheerful face appeared in the doorway. What, you're awake? Come and eat. I made us some tea. Thanks, I'll be right there, I said, reluctantly getting out of bed. During breakfast, he tried to make small talk, but I only gave one-word answers, and for good reason. First, I hadn't slept a wink, and second, I was so sick of him. I get it, the man had been through a tough time, and I should have been more understanding. But I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It was like my parents didn't care about him, and he didn't care about himself. He could have at least seen a doctor, but no, why bother? He was perfectly happy with the way things were. I thanked him for the tea and sandwiches, then quickly got ready and left the house. I didn't want to be in the same house with that psycho. Later, my mom called and asked how we were doing. I told her everything, straight up. Zhenya, just be patient for a little while longer. We'll come home and figure something out. And besides, you're the one who wanted to stay home. We asked you to come with us, you know. Mom, I don't want him living with us. And what do you suggest we do? Kick him out on the street? Well, maybe he should get his act together. He's got it made, barely working. Zhenya, we don't know what he's been through. You have to understand, it's hard for him. Well, maybe we should know. Maybe he's hiding from someone. Maybe he's on the run. My mom didn't answer that question. The line went dead. Fine, whatever. Eventually, they'll get tired of it themselves. He's only been living with us for a short time. That day, I wandered the streets, but I quickly got bored. I decided to go visit a friend. Time flew by at his place, and we ended up hanging out until the evening. He suggested I stay the night. Your parents won't mind? I don't think so. I'll call my mom now. However, despite our expectations, his mom said no. They had plans, so she suggested I stay over another time. With extreme reluctance, I trudged home. This had never happened before my dad's brother came back, not even when I fought with my parents. I'd rather sit in the entryway all night than go home. I hope this ends sooner or later. We spent the whole evening in different rooms. I felt a kind of apathy and didn't want to do anything. And I had school tomorrow. We had a final exam, and I had no energy at all. I hoped things would be easier at school. I fell asleep thinking about the next day and woke up in the middle of the night. This time, I was woken up by a physiological need. I tiptoed through the apartment, afraid of waking my uncle. Then I went into the bathroom and closed the door behind me. Just as I finished my business, I heard footsteps in the corridor. The adjacent bathroom door opened, and water started running from the tap. I hope this isn't another one of his sleepwalking episodes. Soon, I came out of the toilet and headed to my room. My uncle was still in the bathroom. Out of sheer curiosity, I glanced back and was instantly wide awake. The bathroom door was slightly ajar, so I could partially see what was happening inside. My uncle was standing in front of the mirror, but staring back at him from the mirror was something else. Its skin was unnaturally pale, almost a bluish white. It had sunken cheeks and a half-open mouth, but the most disgusting part was its eyes. The lower eyelids drooped so much that the mucous membrane and blood vessels were visible. And the expression on its face was utterly abnormal, like it could only be contorted that way in a seizure. My heart started beating very fast, and like a little boy, I ran to my room, locked the door, and hid under the covers, clutching my phone. The water in the bathroom stopped running, and he went back to his bedroom. Just like that, he went back. What was that? How is that even possible? Maybe it was all a bad dream. Maybe I'm the sleepwalker. I was lost in thought for a while, but thankfully, the school environment had a positive effect on me. I never would have thought I could feel better at school than at home. When I was getting ready for school, everything seemed normal. My uncle's face was the same as always, and he was acting normally, which is more than I can say for myself. I was afraid to call my parents, knowing that I wouldn't achieve anything but misunderstanding. After returning home from school, I headed to my room when suddenly, Uncle Roma called me from the kitchen. Did you want something? Sit down, eat. You look pale. What's wrong? Is something wrong at school? Are you being bullied? He bombarded me with questions. No, everything's fine. But I can see something's wrong with you. Everything's fine, I'm just tired. I get it. Well, sit down. I'll pour you some tea. I silently sat down on the stool while he set the table. We had lunch together, and somehow, we started talking. He told me about his childhood, mostly about school. It was probably the first time we had spoken so casually. I enjoyed listening to his stories. They were varied. Some were educational, some were funny, and some were sad. I suddenly felt very ashamed of my thoughts about him. He hadn't done anything wrong. On the contrary, he was trying to be friends, or something. This day, unlike the others, flew by. I no longer wanted to leave the house, let alone spend the night at a friend's. Besides, I was now firmly convinced that I had imagined everything yesterday. I was half asleep, and on top of that, I had a negative attitude towards him. So my imagination played a cruel trick on me. This time, I went to bed early and intended to wake up only in the morning. At least I wouldn't stay up late anymore. Damn it, what now? This time, a knock on my bedroom door woke me up. What if I overslept? Uncle Roma, is that you? Yes, it's me. Are you sleeping already? Yeah, I was. What's up? Oh, I just came in. I thought you weren't asleep yet. Well, I'm awake now. Then I wish you a good night. My body shuddered. Uncle Roma, what are you? Uncle Roma died 15 years ago, he said with a mocking smirk on his face. I realized that the person in the room with me was not my dad's brother. The creature's face began to change, and now I was finally convinced that I hadn't imagined it yesterday. Its facial features contorted beyond recognition. You brought me here yourself. The mirror from that house. Do you know why that house is abandoned? Thanks to me. Its owners have been gone for a long time. What I was feeling inside is beyond description. I didn't know what to do, but it seems my body did everything for me. I jumped out of bed and leapt out the window. I came to in the hospital. My parents were by my side. My mother was crying, and my father had a detached look on his face. The doctor said I was lucky, that it could have been much worse. I had fallen from the third floor, broken my leg, and was badly bruised, but overall, I had escaped serious injury. While I was in the hospital, my parents kept telling me that everything was fine, and they would brush off my questions about Uncle Roma, saying we would talk about it later. I only found out the truth after I was discharged. After my parents left the hospital, they came home to a truly monstrous scene. Our entire apartment was in a horrific state. There was some kind of brown slime on the walls, floor, and ceiling. In addition, the floor was covered in deep scratches. In some places, the wallpaper was torn off the walls, the pillows were ripped open, the tiles in the bathroom were chipped, the mirrors were shattered, and there were other lovely surprises. That's what my parents found. The thing that had been pretending to be Uncle Roma was gone from the apartment, as were his belongings and documents. My parents hastily rented another place and immediately put the apartment up for sale. I was worried about the fate of the mirror. As soon as I was able to go back to our former home, I immediately checked my things. It was a good thing I had hidden it so well that it remained untouched. I had no choice but to throw it into a similarly abandoned house. Of course, it would have been more logical to leave it where I found it, but unfortunately, I had no way of getting to the village. And I didn't want to explain to my parents why we needed to go to the village right now. I left the mirror in one of the abandoned houses. So, if you ever see such a seemingly rare and expensive item, don't be in a hurry to take it.